November 3rd, 2015 is a day that any animal lover should remember. It was the day that Bruce was found in his hometown of Auckland, New Zealand. This lovable feline has made it big on the internet thanks to the adorable photos he's in. Bruce wasn't always sunshine and rainbows though. Bruce has certainly had plenty of rainy days, including the day he was found on the verge of death. It had been raining hard that day that Bruce was found, and Catherine Van Beek had to take a different route to get home. As she was walking down an alleyway, she looked down to see quite a sight. At first, she wasn't sure what she was looking at. Crawling on the concrete was a small, fuzzy creature. At first glance, the creature looked like a rat. When she looked a little closer, she realized it wasn't a rat, but she still couldn't quite make out what it was. Whatever it was in very rough shape. No matter what it was, Catherine was concerned about its well-being. He wasn't meowing when I found him, Van Beek said, but he was crawling slowly along on his tummy. It was as though he was trying to find his mother. Poor little mite, she recalled. His eyes were still closed, and he still had his umbilical cord attached. Since there was no mother to be found, Catherine knew if she left him there alone, he was sure to die. It was truly a sad situation. Catherine, like many people, is an animal lover at heart. Not thinking twice about it, she rushed the tiny creature to her house in order to get it out of the rain. Since she had a small, dying kitten in her care, she knew she had to save it. But first, the kitten needed a name. Catherine named it Bruce Wayne because they were both orphans at a young age. Naming an animal is easy. Now, making sure they don't die, that's the hard part. It was unclear whether or not Bruce would survive those first few days of life. He didn't make any kind of noise and seemed like he was incredibly sick. Bruce was put under 24-hour surveillance because he was entirely too sick to be left alone. Catherine said that he was so bad off that even the slightest breeze could have ended his tiny life. After 3 months, Bruce gave Catherine a small yet game-changing surprise. Now that Bruce had enough energy to make a little noise, he began to meow when he was hungry. Thanks to his newfound voice, Catherine knew that Bruce was a cat that always seemed to be hungry. Catherine said that Bruce always wanted to eat, but that was fine with her. If he was eating, he wasn't dead, which was what mattered. Even though he'd been eating, Bruce was still very fragile. His little body was so weak he almost died a few times. But Bruce had a strong will to live. He was a survivor. The whole time Catherine was nursing Bruce back to good health, she was updating her co-workers on his condition. Over time, Catherine decided to put Bruce's story on the internet. I was working for Auckland Council at the time, Van Beek said. They were really interested, so I started a Facebook page to keep everyone updated. Catherine was only expecting a few people from her work to like the page, but then Bruce became internet famous. It only took a few months for the Bruce the Cat Facebook page to rapidly gain followers. Bruce was famous. At first, it was a real life and death battle, and then I thought interest might fade, Catherine said of Bruce's popularity. People didn't lose interest, though. They were too emotionally invested in the well-being of this tiny cat. He became a symbol of hope to his followers. Soon after becoming famous, something began to happen to Bruce. Something strange. As Bruce's health changed, so did his appearance. His fur, which was usually gray, began to change colors. His patches of fur began to darken. After a little time, Bruce began to change into a completely black cat. Of course, the sudden change in appearance made the internet go crazy. No one had ever heard of a cat that could change colors. Because no one knew how this could happen, Bruce's fame skyrocketed. Unfortunately, even though Bruce was getting healthy, he wasn't out of the woods of danger yet. It seemed that Bruce's chameleon fur was a condition contracted immediately after his birth, called fever coat. If the mother goes through upheaval during pregnancy, this can be caused by infection or stress. Fever coat is passed on to newborn kittens. The illness is the reason the kitten's fur was gray. The body just doesn't seem to know what color the cat's coat will be for months. The illness was harmless to Bruce, but it sure did gain him quite a bit of popularity online. Catherine didn't expect Bruce to become so popular with the internet community. He started turning black, so that was interesting to people, she said. Catherine did make the best out of her pet's newfound fame. What was only a single Facebook page quickly turned into having a page on every social media outlet imaginable. Catherine made sure to update the Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube accounts with adorable pictures of Bruce's adorable transformation. But social media wasn't the only place for his cuteness. Since Catherine was a writer and illustrator of children's books, she was inspired to turn Bruce's story into her own piece of literary art. Ktten got a Kickstarter campaign up and running and began to bring the story of the chameleon cat to life. After she was approached by Mary Egan Publishing, her dream became a reality. Keep your eyes out for its release. Even though the book hasn't been officially released, interest and pre-orders have changed Ktten and Bruce's lives. The book sales provided enough money for Kten's family and Bruce, of course, to move from Auckland to Dunedin. The move has even inspired Ktten to write a sequel to her book as well. The book would be about Bruce's first move to the big city. It's a bit of fun, really, for me, Van Beek said of the kids' books. It's just an interesting hobby. I think he brings his fans a bit of light relief. Bruce also decided to put his fame to good use. With Ktten by his side, Bruce wanted to help out other furry friends that are less fortunate than him. I'd like to help other little kitties and the people who look after them, Bruce's website says. With the public's help, I've raised funds for the SPCA, and now I'm working with the Animal Rescue Network. It just goes to show that Bruce Wayne is the perfect name for this superhero cat. Want to see what this little chameleon looks like now? It took Bruce several months to find his true self, but he finally was able to become who he always was meant to be. Bruce was able to outgrow his fever coat, and now he has gorgeous green eyes to match that sleek black fur. Bruce went from facing an almost absolutely certain death to finding a loving family to being a chameleon. But thanks to Ktten, he was able to overcome